Final word, Senator.
One comment I would say is that one thing about Assad is that Assad never really tolerated al-Qaeda. By defeating Assad, you will embolden al-Qaeda. Second point I would make is that the Christians, many of them came voluntarily into Syria. So Assad is not a great guy. I mean, Assad is a dictator and authoritarian like so many are in the Middle East and around the world. But I think it's important to remember, though, that Christians came voluntarily out of a country, Iraq, where we won the war and an Islamic government was instituted, and they felt safer under Assad. 250,000 Christians fled Iraq during and after the war to come to Syria. There are 2 million Christians, somewhere between 1 million and 2 million Christians in Syria, and they're there because that's the one area they have felt the safest. They're more there than even in Israel. So I think that we need to be careful about what we're doing here, because we are siding with the people, against Assad, who was one who limited al-Qaeda. He didn't tolerate al-Qaeda because it was a religious difference, and they were limited when he could, when he had the power to, by al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is emboldened. Iran is emboldened by the loss of the Sunni government in Iraq. And I'm not saying Hussein was a good guy either. But what we're setting up is maybe a situation where what, I know you're all well-intentioned, but maybe what occurs out of this is less stability and more free reign for al-Qaeda, and that's my concern.
I appreciate the Senator's views. He has been consistent in his views on some of these issues. However, I strongly disagree with him. 1.5 million people who have been displaced, 80,000 who are dead. Hezbollah, Iranian Guard. I think that a good part of overall the Syrian population is at risk. And finally, I would just reiterate us specifically to the amendment. Section 5 specifically states that nothing in the act shall be construed as providing authorization for the use of military force by the U.S. Armed Forces. So I believe this amendment is unnecessary and actually creates, for some of the reasons my colleagues said, a greater challenge. With that, since the Senators asked for a roll call vote, I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mrs. Boxer?
Mrs. Boxer votes no by proxy.
Mr. Pardon?
No by proxy.
No by proxy.
Mr. Casey?
No.
Mrs. Shaheen? No. Mr. Coons?
No by proxy.
No by proxy.
Mr. Durbin?
Not voting.
Not voting.
Mr. Udall? Mr. Murphy? Mr. Kane? Mr. Corker?
No.
Mr. Rick?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
No by proxy.
Excuse me. Mr. Rubio?
No.
Mr. Flake?
No by proxy.
Mr. McCain? Mr. Barrasso? No. Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
No.
2 ayes, 15 noes.
The amendment is not agreed to. Is there any other amendments offered?